Today's Daily Ticker fueled by Pelican Brewing's Beak Breaker IPA with big hops, big flavor, a crisp finish. Beak Breaker is the perfect way to stay refreshed through every bracket-busting upset. Joining us now to talk about a couple of different things, recruiting and the NFL draft, is our good friend, Andrew Nemec, at Andrew Nemec on Twitter, Director of Recruiting, High School on SI. And you can hear his show every Thursday right here on The Fan, Recruiting with Andrew Nemec. Right after primetime. Nemec, good morning to you. When you get the good news or the bad news angle, you always want to go bad news first, and then we'll go to the good news. So, a concerning trend that some Duck fans are a little worried about. What's been going on, losing decommitments, and especially to USC, have the Trojans woken up, and should Duck fans be concerned about the trend?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little concerning. Oregon's dominated the state of California, and anytime they want guys, say, from modern day, they've been able to get them. Losing a four-star defensive tackle, one of the top defensive tackles in the West region, to a USC, and also potentially splitting up that pipeline out of modern day is a little concerning. We've talked on my show. It's Thursday nights. You can catch it tonight at 7 p.m. right here on 1080 The Fan. We've talked about the fact that Washington and USC in particular were really slow to adapt to NIL. And people were like, can Kalen DeBoer even recruit? And I was like, he can recruit just fine. There's some issues with Washington and their NIL. USC, very similar stuff. They had some issues on defense. They weren't winning, and they were doing poorly with their NIL. Both those programs seem to have figured some things out in this last offseason. I think both on the field and in recruiting, they got slapped a little bit. And it was like, man, we have to jump on board. There's no excuses, and there's no fighting against what is the new era of college football. So what you're seeing right now is that USC has started to course correct on defense a little bit. I know they think they've kind of crossed the finish line in that regard, but I don't know that that's true, but they've certainly taken a step forward. And now their NIL is sorted. And rather than having infighting about NIL or trying to lowball kids and act like playing for Lincoln Riley is the greatest gift anyone can give someone, they're at least matching market. And once you're in USC and you have Los Angeles and the excitement, there's a lot of reasons to like USC. If they go 10-2, 11-1 in the regular season this year, I think they'll hang on to that momentum. If, however, they have another 7-6 kind of season where they win a bad bowl game or something, I don't foresee this sticking around. So there's a lot of proof in the pudding this season. There's a lot on the line for USC this season, but certainly they figured out their NIL, and that's what you're seeing this spring.
Interesting. Well, that's the bad news for Oregon. Let's get to potentially the good news, depending on how it all turns out, although it could be more bad news. Number one quarterback in the country, according to a lot of different outlets, is this Jared Curtis kid. I believe he's out of Nashville. And he's been rumored to Oregon for a long time. He kind of whittled down his finalists to Georgia and Oregon. He teased a big announcement the other day, which ended up, I believe, being a commitment date. So we got to wait a little bit longer. But Dan Lanning battling against his former school in Georgia for the number one quarterback. This one's interesting to me, Nemec, just because of the way Oregon has handled that position, where they've recruited some nice players. None of them really played yet there. They've largely leaned on the transfer portal under Lanning. And again, this year, I know Dante Moore was a commit for a long time, but then went to UCLA, and he's a transfer as well. This seems like maybe the guy that could break that mold. I'm just curious your thoughts on Curtis, and when do we know a commitment date? What do we know about this number one quarterback in the country?
Well, Jared Curtis, let's start there. He's 6'3", 220 pounds. As a younger kid, all the way through about middle school, he was actually kind of a bruising running back, and he still kind of has that running style a little bit. He ran for over 600 yards and 18 touchdowns last year, averaging 7 yards a carry. But throwing, he threw for 3,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. Gives you a good idea of why he's rated the number one player in the country. He was committed to Georgia and was committed for a long time. He opened things up, and when he did, it was very clear Georgia was still a team firmly in the running. But what was also very clear is that he opened it up in part because he was enamored with Oregon, and he really liked Oregon. And some other schools were in the mix for him, and he visited some other schools throughout the fall and into the early part of the year. And then it came down to Oregon and Georgia, and that kind of followed what everybody had thought from the beginning, that he'd really opened up his recruitment to check out Oregon. A couple weeks ago, he took an extended 4 or 5 day stay in Oregon. He went to the Oregon coast. I know people on social media joke that he got to the Oregon coast before Damian Lillard did. That was a big feather in his cap. Then he went to Georgia, and now he's kind of settling in. with his camp, with his family, and going to make a decision on May 5th. As it stands right now, I think Oregon has a slight edge. I think anytime you open up your recruitment for one school in particular, that goes well. He likes Will Stein. He likes Dan Lanning. Those guys look to be staying for the foreseeable future. I think there's a lot of reasons to like Oregon. That said, I think it's a slight lead.
Yeah.
And I think Georgia's a little closer to home. And sometimes as things get closer, guys get itchy about going across the country and things change. I think leaving those two big visits, Oregon had the advantage. I don't think it was overwhelming, but I think they had the advantage. Time will tell if that will stay. If it doesn't, and he picks Georgia, Oregon fans shouldn't panic. They should just simply pivot to Ryder Lyons out of Folsom, California. He is a top 5 player in this class. He's the number 3 quarterback. This is a very, very good quarterback class. He's actually going to take an 18-month Mormon mission, so he won't join the class until 2027. But like Jared Curtis, he does fall in line with Oregon's timing in terms of whether it's Austin Novosad or Dante Moore. They'll have their plan. And you brought up a good point about Oregon not really wading into the 5-star waters. I think they haven't done that in the Lanning area because in the NIL era, which coincides with Lanning's start, it was the wild, wild west. And we saw this. We saw, Nico Imaliave rumored to get close to $10 million. We saw Jaden Rashada. That paperwork full on came out. We've seen it.
Right.
It was around $12 million. Oregon wasn't prepared to go into that and thought let's get proven guys until we kind of know what this market is for 5-star players. And we'll get proven guys like Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel. We'll recruit that guy in the 10 to 20 range nationally at quarterback. If he pops, great. If he doesn't, we have depth. But let's not jump in with both feet until the market settles. Well, people have kind of figured out the quarterback market now. We kind of understand the budget for NIL and what a 5-star costs at quarterback and corner and defensive tackle. And so Oregon's much more prepared to say, okay, maybe an NIL investment makes sense in a big-time quarterback if he fits our timeline and we really like him.
Interesting. We're talking with Andrew Nemec. You can hear him right here on The Fan tonight, 7 to 8 p.m. He's our recruiting insider, also director of recruiting high school on SI, on Twitter at Andrew Nemec. Nobody follows the NFL draft closer in this building than you do, Nemec. I know you're glued to this, and you should almost have your own NFL draft show after the recruiting show, especially this time of year as we lead into it. Let me ask you on a local guy, Tez Johnson, 40 time at the combine and then not running the 40 at his pro day. Deal or no deal for Andrew Nemec?
If you're going to run a 4.5 at 154 pounds, don't do it again and show everybody that that's what you run. It's not a good look. I know that his actual miles per hour was much better. I know that his short shuttle was better. I know in some of the drills he was close to the number 1 receiver in the drill in terms of what speed he reached. So that's a good thing. What I keep saying to people who counter with, well, he was in the 90th percentile or 93rd percentile in the short shuttle or in some of the other drills. My response is he should be. That's baked into, you better be in the 98th percentile, like 99th percentile in speed if you're in the literal 0th percentile all time in terms of size. There's a give and take. And if people think the combine proves something, it shouldn't. It should confirm your priors. It should confirm what you see on film. And if it doesn't, that's a concern. Not necessarily, we all thought Tez was like a 4.37, 4.41 guy potentially. So the fact that he ran slower and he weighed in 4 pounds lighter than the Senior Bowl was actually a problem. That being said, if I'm in the 5th or 6th round and Tez Johnson's sitting there and he can maybe return kicks for me and he can be a slot receiver and there's packages for him, I'd absolutely take the investment. Tez is a phenomenal football player, but it was wild to see him run a 4.5 and then stand on a 4.5 at the pro day and say, I'm not going to run it again. It's like, okay, you're linked to that 4.5 then. And I know, I've listened to podcasts with some of the national experts who absolutely said everyone thought he'd run fast. So the fact that he ran slow hurt him. There's no way around it. Still a good football player, but that was brutal.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for his weight to be that to move. I think everybody was shocked when they saw that number because we all watch him play. He's fast. We know that he's fast, and then you see the 40 time, and you're like, wait, it just doesn't compute in my head. I saw an analyst the other day. I think it was Ryan Wilson or somebody who was saying that Cam Ward's pro day was the most impressive pro day that he had ever seen. He
Yeah.
said to the Titans GM after a throw, like, "Hey, I'm solidifying myself as the number 1 overall pick." Now we don't know if the Titans will be drafting number 1. I got a ticket on Abdul Carter just as a flyer because of the odds. I don't think I'm going to cash that ticket. I know I think, had some bets on that as well. Your thoughts on Cam Ward? I have a mixed feeling on him. I clearly understand the potential. I have fears of the style of play and holding onto the ball too long, especially for a bad team and a bad offensive line. Where are you at on Cam Ward?
Yeah, I always think it's important, and this is something that the nerd in me always does. I always grade for a few years back. So where would Cam Ward be last year? And I would have had him right in the range of J.J. McCarthy. So he would have been, for me, he would have been behind Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I had Michael Penix 2. I had Drake May 3. And I had Jaden Daniels 4. And I liked those guys. There was definitely a gap for me. And then it was kind of J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
I would have him ahead of McCarthy, but he would have been probably my 5th quarterback last year. Now, that was a very good quarterback class. And we look at what happened with Bo Nix, who was outside that top 4. He was still a good player. If you're desperate for a quarterback and you can get a guy you can believe in for a few years, and that's kind of where I'm at with Cam Ward, I think you can invest in that, and the ceiling works. If he hits it, if it doesn't, you obviously reset and it hurts your franchise. But he's got potential to figure it out and be a franchise quarterback. And if you've got nothing, if you've got no answer, just the guy that puts mayo in his coffee, I think you take that swing to normalcy. That being said, I find the whole pro day thing hilarious because I hated Zach Wilson and Mac Jones. I hated both those guys coming out. And Zach Wilson threw that ball like running the other way against his body to a receiver he's really familiar with on air where there's no defense. And everybody went, he has to be the number 2 quarterback now because of that throw. And it's like, you guys, he's in shorts. There's
no pass rush.
There's nothing you could see in a pro day except bad.
Yeah.
Like you could see bad, and you could see bad, like just bad behavior, somebody acting terrible, being disrespectful to people, or just a noodle arm, or just missing his own receivers in his own building. Those are red flags. Beyond that, a pro day to me for a quarterback is mostly about interviews and just verifying in person, okay, the arm strength's exactly what we thought it was. I do think it's funny when people are like, the best pro day ever. It's like, what did he do? The firmest handshakes, the best eye contact? Like, we all saw him throw against defenses. So you take the defenses away and he completed all his passes. I'm shocked.
Yeah, no pass rush, no secondary out there. He looked really good, man. If only NFL football was played that way, he'd be a juggernaut, an unstoppable force. Andrew Nemec, he's our recruiting insider, and you can hear him right here on The Fan tonight, 7 to 8 p.m., Direct Recruiting High School on SI, at Andrew Nemec on Twitter. I know you got to be working late tonight, so thanks for getting up early with us this morning, man. We appreciate it. Thanks for the insights, and hopefully we'll do this again soon as we get a little bit closer to the Curtis commit date and the NFL draft.
Perfect. All right, thanks.
There you go. Andrew Nemec, our recruiting insider. We'll be on The Fan tonight, 7 8 p.m. Did you know today's Daily Ticker, as always, fueled by Pelican Brewing's Beak Breaker IPA. With big hops, big flavor, and a crisp finish, Beak Breaker is the perfect way to stay refreshed through every bracket-busting upset. Boom goes the dynamite.